All right. Hello, everyone. We're going to wait just a minute here before we get started. There's a little bit of a delay in the live stream, so I'm making sure I'm actually showing up. Looks like it's pretty good. Um, yeah, looks like we got a few people here. Let's just go ahead and jump into it. Well, hello, everyone. I am Matt Ulason with Linux Academy, and welcome to our very first Google Cloud live stream hands-on demo. This is the first time we've done it, but I'm really excited with really kind of some of the ideas we had in mind of where we're going to take this. So yeah, welcome everyone. So what I kind of want to do, well, let me back up a little bit. So kind of the idea I had for this live stream when it was first proposed to me a little while ago is that we really wanted to do or accomplish two different things within these weekly hands-on demonstrations. Number one is, of course, do some sort of hands-on demonstration to, learn something new, which is great. But really kind of the bigger theme I wanted to go for was, it sounds kind of cliche, but learning how to learn. And where I'm kind of coming from that is I like using memes for everything. At one point or another, especially in our technology careers, this is all of us. We want to learn something new. We're maybe stuck in some sort of a technology role doing help desk or desktop support. And we know there's something bigger and better out there, but we have no idea where to start because there's just so much and it's so complicated compared to what we know now. How do we get from here over to here and just trying to make that step into really where we want to be is just really daunting. And that's just really where I was, just a little over a year ago before I started with Linux Academy. And it's just like a very slow process of learning how to learn. Take something that you don't know and not only learn it, but know how to learn it. That kind of gets you from, where you're at to where you want to go. So it sounds very cliche and motivational stuff and everything, but that's really kind of the theme that I wanted to do with these hands-on demonstrations. Number one, demonstrate something. And then number two, go through the learning process that either I went through or someone else would have to go through to get to the point where they actually learn something new. So enough motivational stuff. Let's just go ahead and jump into the demonstration that we're going to do today. Before we do that, though, if you do like these broadcasts and the live demos, you got to do the obligatory hit that subscribe button. We are planning on doing these hands-on demos every Thursday at about the same time. We'll figure out the exact timings later, but for now, we're going to stick with 10 a.m. Central Time for our live demonstrations. So if you like this and want to keep seeing more of it, hit the subscribe button, and I will bring plenty more to you. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump into it. What we're going to do today is we are going to do a beginner's introduction to scripting or automating some infrastructure setup using G-Cloud commands. We're going to do it, though, from the perspective of someone who may be familiar with the web console, kind of from a beginner's perspective. But when it comes to the actual G-Cloud scripting itself, you kind of know it's there, but you really don't know how to do it. So you can kind of think of it as creating an infrastructure setup using scripting from the perspective of someone who doesn't know how to do scripting. And we're going to get from the perspective of not knowing how to do something and learning how to get there and get there in the end result. Oh, and GM brought up a very good point before I jump into it. Yes, we definitely want topics for live demos. In fact, I forgot to say it. Thank you, GM, for reminding me. Is that we want you to recommend in our chat here what you want to see for future live demos. So I had a topic for today, but we're going to actually take suggestions from the audience here, and you're going to basically tell me what we're going to be doing next week and the week after that. Now, there's going to be a couple little caveats. It has to be something that we can reliably demonstrate in about a half hour to 45-minute stream. We're also going to try to keep it from either a beginner to intermediate level. So if it's something where we have to wait 30 minutes for a Spark job to compile doing nothing, maybe that won't work out best for the stream. But we'll be flexible. And bonus points if it's something that I'm familiar with myself, but have to do a little bit of learning on my own to fill in the gaps. Because what I'd like to be able to do ultimately is say, hey, someone suggested this. There were some gaps in my knowledge about how to do it, and here's what I had to do to fill in the rest of those gaps. Kind of going back to the learning how to learn or learning process idea, where I got to learn something, and then I'll show you what I did to have to learn it and fill in the rest of the gaps for the demo. Cool? All right. Let's go ahead and jump into it. What we're going to do is, if you are a Linux Academy subscriber and you went through the Google Cloud Architect Part 2 course, we had an exercise in there in which we were testing how to create a VPN connection between two different compute engine instances. And for the exercise, we had a public cloud storage bucket and a script that you could download and execute. And what that would do is it would automatically create two separate VPC networks, the firewall rules associated with it, and an instance inside of each one. So it would basically set up your environment so you could jump right into the VPN portion. We're going to do the exact same thing here today, except we're going to do this again from the perspective of someone who has no idea how to do G-Cloud scripting, but you may know how to do it from the web console. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up everything in the web console. And in the process of that, it's going to give you the answers of how to create your script from it as well. So we're going to bridge the gap from using the point and click interface of the web console into an actual script we can execute and everything along the way. That's going to be kind of the learning process in between. So here's kind of the big picture view of what we're going to do. And I got a little Lucidchart document up here. What we're going to do is we're going to create two separate VPC networks. And if you're not familiar, VPC is short for Virtual Private Cloud, which is basically an all-encompassed virtual network that different resources inside each network can communicate internally over a private or internal IP address. Anyway, we're going to create two separate networks. Inside of each network, we're going to create a single custom subnet, and we're going to create an instance inside of each one of those subnets. And we have to set up a firewall rule for each network, allowing port 22 so we can SSH into each one. Fairly simple setup, but we're going to end in the result of we're going to have a script at the end to automate the entire process. And we're going to be referring back here throughout the demo. Here's our overall big picture. We got to first create our networks, our firewall rules, and then an instance. And here's kind of the process we're going to be going over, going from web console version over to scripting version as well. So enough yapping. I'm just going to go ahead and jump into it. The first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to create our two VPC networks. And again, for the first run through before we tear it down, we're going to do everything via the web console with the graphical user interface. So I'm going to go to our top left menu, go to VPC network. Hopefully I properly tore it down from our dry run yesterday. We did not. So demo fail on my part. My apologies for that. You know what? Just because I am demo failing, I'm going to create a new project from a fresh slate and then start it all over again. What's a hands-on demo without a tech fail, right? Once that new project's up, I'm going to start with a fresh slate, and we'll go ahead and jump into that one. I'm going to go ahead and recheck to do this. Yes, Christian, you can use Terraform to do all of this. We're just going from a beginner's perspective today with a very simple G-Cloud scripting. But yes, very good point on bringing that up. And I am looking at the suggestion. And if I don't read the suggestion when it's live, we're going to compile all of them. And I'm going to go ahead and choose one after the fact here as I'm demonstrating. Okay, apologies for the tech fail there. We have a brand new project. And Compute Engine is getting ready. So once the Compute Engine API initializes, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and jump in and create our two new networks. I'm just going to look at some of the comments here while we are waiting. Let's say VPN. Hey, Aziz, that's actually a really good topic of how to implement site-to-site VPN. I know in some of our courses, we talked about doing like a very simple setup. I don't know if we could do a hands-on demo of like an actual on-premises one. I may kind of think about that to see how we can work it out, but very good suggestion. Thank you for that. Still waiting for Compute Engine to get ready. Let me actually go back to our other one. So what's happening here, in case you're wondering why I'm just sitting here, is that I did a dry run for this yesterday, and I forgot to delete my resources before we did it today, which is a complete mess up on my part. So we're just waiting to get ourselves a fresh slate here again. So what we set up is the same as on here. Should be ready in just a moment. So as we're awkwardly waiting, where's everyone? Well, actually, I think great question would be is what's your current experience with Google Cloud, and what's really the main area that you want to focus on as far as learning more how to do it? That is taking too long. I'm going to go ahead and go back into our initial one and just do a quick bit of manual cleanup. Again, apologies for the demo fail. Data pipelines, that's a good one. Machine learning. Yeah, those are really kind of the really two big areas that Google Cloud themselves is really focusing on, as machine learning. Did you all catch the Google Next announcements from last week? Really the big expansion, especially in machine learning. Auto ML looks to be pretty interesting. We don't have any course material on that yet, but I'm really wanting to jump into that further to kind of explore it. Okay, we got our test project up. We're going to go ahead and run in that. Again, apologies for the demo fail, but we should be up and running now. Let's go ahead and jump back in. So what we're going to do is, again, we're going to do everything the first time with the web console, but we're going to get references from that into how to create Google Cloud or G Cloud scripts from the same thing. So the first thing we're going to do is go into our VPC networks. And again, we're going to do everything from the web console, the first run through. We're going to create a VPC network. Call our first one Network 1. We're going to use a custom subnet called Subnet A in our US East 1 region. And we'll need an IP address range for the subnet. We'll do 10.0.1.0/24. Everything looks good. Now, if I were to be using only the web console, I would click on Create. However, if you look at the very bottom here, there is a command line reference, and this is really where the magic happens as far as our cross-reference for bridging the gap from using the web console over to G-Cloud commands. So before we hit Create, I'm going to actually click on this command line link down here. And what we have here is the G-Cloud command line reference for everything I just set up here in the web console. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. I have a text editor. I'm just going to use text edit on my Mac. You can use, of course, whatever just text pad you have on your operating system. Copy and paste to there. Hit close on here. And then hit create. As network 1 is spinning up, I'm going to go ahead and create our second network. It's going to be network 2. Our subnet is going to be subnet B, and my IP range is US Central 1, and we're going to do 2.0/24. Everything looks good. I am again going to go to my command line cross-reference. You should be noticing a pattern by now. So we're going to go ahead and copy our G-Cloud command line reference and then paste them into our text pad. Again, this is going to be really the process we're going to be doing for our first pass-through. Hit close, create, and we have our second network up and running. So as those are creating itself, the next thing we need to do in our process is that we need to create firewall rules for us to be able to access each of our instances via SSH. So for that, we're going to go back in our VPC network menu, go to our firewall rules. We have our default ones here for the default network. We're going to ignore those, and we're going to go ahead and click create a new firewall rule. Let's see, what did I name those rules? I don't have a name for that, so we'll just go ahead and call it network 1 SSH for SSH for network 1. Our network is going to be for network 1, so firewall rules are tied to a single VPC network at a time. It's going to be for incoming traffic. We're going to allow the traffic coming in. We're going to go ahead, for demonstration's sake, apply it to all instances in the network. Our source filters, so for our incoming traffic, we're going to have it for the entire public internet. So we'll just do 0000/0. And we're going to allow a specified port of TCP port 22. And again, before I click on create, we'll go to our command line cross-reference. This is the same firewall rule I just set up in G-Cloud format. So if I can properly double click it, copy and paste into our text pad. Again, you should be seeing a pattern by now, how we're going from creating everything in the web console to creating a script out of it. Hey, our producer Jacob is managing this. Hey, Jacob, are we able to take the screen share full screen, maybe with the video overlapping, just so it's a little bit bigger, so it's a little bit easier to see? Thank you for pointing that out. And yes, my background decorations didn't work. Moving on, again, rinse and repeat. We're going to create our second firewall rule. We'll go ahead and call it network 2 SSH. And I can't spell apparently, so network is going to be for our network 2. All instances incoming from the entire public internet. And we're going to do TCP port 22 again. Again, this should be a pretty familiar pattern by now. Do something in the web console, get the G-Cloud cross-reference, paste into our text pad, create the rule. Okay, so going back to our big picture chart, we have our 2 networks, we have our subnet inside of each network, and we have a firewall rule allowing port 22 on each individual network as well. Final step is to create our instances within each subnet itself to complete the web console portion of our entire infrastructure setup. Getting requests to zoom in a little bit. All right, let me fix that. Okay, hopefully it should be a little bit easier to see. Thank you for the feedback there. So we need to go ahead and create our instances now. Again, using the web console the first time, we're going to go into Compute Engine, create a machine, coincidentally named Instance 1 for convenience sake. And the first one's going to be Network 1 Subnet A US East. Because I'm cheap, I'm going to make it a micro machine type. Already set to US East 1. Zone there is fine. Most of the defaults are good. However, the last step we need to do is make sure that we are tying it to our Network 1 and Subnet A. Looks pretty good. And yet again, we're going to go to our command line reference. A lot of information there. We may not need that when we create a script from it, but for now, we're going to go ahead and select all of it, copy it, go to our text pad, and paste it in there. Should be pretty familiar by now. Looks pretty good. And then click on Create. We'll give that a second to go ahead and come on up. Going to go ahead and create our second instance while the first one is spinning up. Instance 2, very coincidentally named as we need. Let's see, this one is in US Central on Subnet B. I'm a cheapskate, so micro machine type. Most defaults are good. go to our networking section, and we will attach that to network 2, and our subnet user only subnet on network 2 for US Central. So that's good right there. And yet again, go to our command line, attempt to copy, and then paste into our text pad. And that's spinning up, and that is actually the entirety of the setup, again, using the web console, which is, again, going to be our learning step to get from not knowing GCOG commands to being able to create a script out of it. Make sure everyone likes my font level. Okay, looks pretty good. Okay, so we actually had this entire setup complete using the web console, which is great. This is our first step. So now what we're going to do is we're going to tear everything down, basically destroy everything. And we're going to do this again from scratch, except this time, instead of using the web console, we have our equivalent GCOG commands here. What we're going to do is once everything is torn down again, we're going to, in a Cloud Shell session, input these commands one by one just to make sure they worked, basically doing a command line by command line run through to make sure we can build it step by step for the entire same end result. It is a little time consuming, but this is part of the learning process where you are seeing what works and just making sure each command works the way that you want it to, and doing any tweaking or modification that you may need to do along the way. So now that we're done with this, we're going to go ahead and just basically tear everything down again. Now, there is a certain order you have to go in. You have to first delete your instances because you cannot delete a network if there is an instance still inside of it. And there will be some awkward waiting as we're waiting for it to go away. And I'll check out the comments here in the meantime. Yes, AJ, firewall rules are project-based. They're actually VPC network-based. So if we have more than one VPC network inside of here, in this case, we have 3. Your firewall rules are attached to each individual network. And of course, you can have multiple networks per project. So yes on that. Okay, let's see if our instances are gone yet. They are not. I'll look at some comments here in the meantime. You can tell this is my first live show, by the way. So I'm trying to bounce the whole checking out comments while doing stuff. Really great suggestions for hands-on demos here, by the way. So we're definitely going to look those over once we're done and pick something out. Get some feedback on the visualization. Can everyone see now, by the way? We upped the size a little bit. If you're still having trouble seeing the very tiny font, let me know. We can bump it up just a little bit more. We're still waiting for that last instance to go away. We can probably get rid of network 1 in the meantime. So let's get rid of network 1. And in the web console, if you delete a VPC network, that will also delete the subnets and firewall rules for you, so we don't have to do each of those individually. If you're going to do it via command line, you have to individually delete the firewall rules and subnets first before you can delete the VPC, but the web console does it all in one shot. Okay, all our instances are deleted, so let's go ahead and clean up and delete network 2 as well. And that'll take a moment to clean up. Let's just go ahead and give ourselves a completely fresh slate and get rid of the default VPC network just to make it a little bit cleaner. Okay, so again, more awkward waiting for our networks to go away. And then once those are gone, we're going to do the exact same thing again, except this time we're going to go into our Cloud Shell. If you're not familiar with the Cloud Shell, I think it's awesome. I'm surprised other cloud platforms don't have something like this. It's basically a web-based command line shell session directly in your web browser that really has all your tools built into it. And if you've taken any of our Google Cloud courses, I use it a lot because it's a consistent environment for everyone. It basically has everything you need, and it's already there in your web console, so it's really easy to get to. I want to actually break this out into a new window just so we have full screen to work with. And I think our networks, okay, they're still deleting our networks. Okay, networks are gone. We have a complete fresh slate. So Second verse, same as the first. We're going to do all the exact same stuff again, except this time we're going to copy and paste our command line cross references from when we did it through the web console one by one, and we're going to see what happens. Now, I want to make this a little bit easier to see. I'm going to go half screen on our web console. And let's do a little bit of side by side. I might decrease the size of our shell session just a little bit because there's a lot there. If that's too small, we'll fix it as well. Let me know if the shell session font's too small, and we'll deal with it. Okay, so we're going to do the exact same steps again. We're going to create our two networks, create our subnets, create our firewall rules, and then create our instances. Now, this isn't ready for being repeatable within other projects and other accounts yet, but we're going to go ahead and get to that here in just a little bit. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our cross-reference command for creating a network, copy, and paste it into there, hit enter, and we're going to see what happens. Now, we got an error. So, okay, an error popped up, obviously not what you want to do, but fortunately, it tells you exactly what is wrong here. And it's showing from our error message here that the mode tag right here has been removed. Please use subnet-mode instead. And that's kind of interesting in that the gcloud cross-reference in the web console is actually giving you outdated commands, which probably needs to be fixed on Google's end, but fortunately, they gave you the correct answer in that the commands have been updated. So it looks like from our script here, mode equals custom doesn't work anymore. So we're going to go ahead and change these over to subnet-mode equals custom, and we'll do that for our second one here as well. So we are now tweaking and modifying our command line script as needed. So now that we fixed that, let's go ahead and copy and paste that in again, and it should work this time. And there's going to be a little bit of waiting as we're waiting for all the command lines to execute as well. Okay, Azure does have something similar for the web-based shell, so that's a good deal. Does AWS have like an interactive web cloud shell? I honestly am not as familiar with AWS as Google Cloud, so I may be in the dark on that. Okay, so that works there for our first network. We're going to go ahead and create our subnet now. Again, copy and paste. We're just going to go line by line, make sure everything works as we expect it to. Good time for a drink of coffee while we're waiting. Okay, our first subnet is created. Let's go ahead and create our second network now from our next line. And again, I do realize that when you're going through this process, it is a little bit tedious. But again, I really wanted to emphasize the learning and verification process of going from web console over to a full-blown script. So basically, set it up, tear it down, go through line by line, make sure it works, tear it down, and then you can create a all-in-one script from there. So it's not quick, but this is how you verify and learn along the way. And create our subnet. Again, second verse, same as the first. We're going to go line by line and make sure they all work. Okay, as we're waiting, Kristen G asked, what are the benefits of using Google Cloud compared to AWS? Kind of depends on how big of a fanboy you are, to be honest. So different people will have different opinions on this. I am, of course, the resident Linux Academy Google Cloud fanboy, which is, why I'm doing Google Cloud stuff. Really, some of the main reasons that I like Google Cloud over AWS, at least personally, is that one of the big appeals is that Google Cloud is really kind of a born in the cloud from the ground up company. What I kind of mean by that is that, kind of looking over the history of both companies, I'm not trying to dig at AWS at all, is that this is the same infrastructure that Google runs Google on, that Google's been running on for the past, however long they've been around. And some of the other tools, especially those that have come out over the years, such as Bigtable and Cloud Spanner and stuff like that, these are services that Google was running internally for their own billion-plus user services for years before they released to the public as, what any other organization you can use. I think that, benefits such as global VPC networks that I think I think AWS introduced it recently, but until then was unique to Google. From an engineering and network perspective, you can have a US East region, US Central region, Southeast Asia region, all within the same private network that never touches the public internet. That actually connects resources all around the world to each other within the context of a private network. So, but just kind of like an engineering and networking perspective, I personally think that Google's infrastructure is just like way far ahead of everyone else. Is actually quite ridiculous. Is it possible to create a project from Cloud Shell? Yes, it is. If we have time afterwards, we can actually look up how to do that. But yes, very good question. You can create a project from the Cloud Shell. Thank you, Raphael. Okay, where did I leave off at? Okay, so we have our two networks and our two subnets set up. We're going to go ahead and create our firewall rules now. Those should go pretty quickly. I also think that from like a big data and machine learning perspective, those are two of really Google's big strengths as far as what everyone else has to offer, especially when you start talking about BigQuery, which is completely serverless petabyte scale data warehousing. I don't think really anyone else has an equivalent on the market to what BigQuery offers. And from a machine learning perspective, I think Google's just so far ahead of everyone else. It's ridiculous. Again, a little bit of fanboyism here. Some of our other training architects may disagree, but if that's my perspective on it. Okay, we got our first firewall rule done. We'll do our second one. Again, nothing too terribly exciting. We're just verifying that each of our command line lines work before we turn it into a script. Okay, last two, we're going to go ahead and create our instances. Now, I am going to cheat and tell you up front that all of this that you see for our compute engine instance is not going to be repeatable across different projects or other organizations, just because we have very specific information tied to a particular project in there. But we'll get to that here in just a little bit. We are just going to do our initial run through here. Oh yeah, BigQuery ML. So I was at Google Next last week, and when they announced BigQuery ML, I was like, yeah, it's going to be a really big deal. I liked how they were demonstrating running a machine learning model directly against a very large data set within BigQuery using SQL commands, like in seconds. That was pretty cool. And we're waiting for our last instance to get set up. Looks pretty good. Okay, so we went through line by line. Again, very manual, kind of time-consuming process, just making sure that each of our command lines actually work in the command line. And as we saw on the first one, we had to tweak and modify our network creation that had a deprecated command, or actually obsolete command, had to be replaced by the subnet mode. Everything else is pretty good. So let's make sure everything else is good. We have two networks. We have firewall rules, and we have our instances. So it looks pretty good there. Awesome. So making progress. We went line by line, command line. Next, let's go ahead and turn this into a script that we can run in Cloud Shell, and just within basically just a few keystrokes, set up everything from start to finish, all from scratch. First, we have to tear everything down again, though. Let's do that first. Get rid of our instances. Again, web console, tear down, copy paste one by one, tear down, finish and set up script, tear down again, and then test in another account or organization. So we're moving right along. As this is running, I'm going to go ahead and just point out a little bit more massaging that we will have to do if we want this to be repeatable across different projects or organizations. This may be a little bit of cheating that we could find out through trial and error, but just trying to, move things a little bit quicker here. One thing I wanted to point out is that when you had the command line reference, it gave every single detail that was necessary, or maybe even not necessary. It specified our project as our project ID. And also in our compute engine instances, it also specified the service account that we were going to be using. Now, if we were working within this project only, that would not be that big of a deal. However, if we were attempt to run these lines in another project or within maybe even another organization or account, maybe like the ones we have in our Google Cloud Core script, this would not work. So what I'm going to actually get in and do is I'm going to first zoom in a little bit so you can actually see that. It is Shift Command period. Wow, that's a little bit big. Maybe a little bit too big. That's a little bit too big, actually. Let's go ahead and come back out. So what we actually want to do is we want to strip out information that we don't need where the defaults for whatever your default project or default service account would be fine, so we can repeat it within other projects as well. So the first thing I want to do is I don't want to specify the project be tied to a certain one. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. And at least within Text Edit on Mac and other operating systems may be different, we can actually paste that in, find all instances of it, and actually want to replace and just replace it with nothing. So we stripped out the project info within each one of our lines so we can repeat this within other projects as well. The other thing we want to do is we want to strip out specifying a service account, which is again also tied down to this individual project. In fact, what we can actually do is delete everything after subnet A here, and it will still work. And that way, we don't have extra information set in outside of the defaults. And that will, again, be repeatable just using our defaults not explicitly specified here with another project and other accounts and organizations as well. So again, a little bit of cheating, but I know we're kind of running a little bit long here. Just kind of speeding that process up just a little bit. Okay, so we have our instances deleted. Let me go ahead and finish cleaning up here and delete our networks. And we are then going to create a script after that is done. Okay, so it kind of looks like a script here. Let's just go ahead and add in a few other tweaks to make it a proper shell script. We will do a shebang bin bash. Let's go ahead and save this. We'll just stick it in downloads for now. And we'll call this just script.sh. So kind of looking at the big picture perspective here again is that we started off having no knowledge of how to do gcloud commands. We knew it was gcloud something, but didn't really know all the different particulars after that. We started in the web console and built our infrastructure step by step, but within the web console, we had our command line cross-reference, copy and pasted our command line cross-reference in here, which gave us the commands that we need to do. Then once we set it up the first time, we tore it down, and then ran our commands one by one to see if they work, tweak and modify and massage as necessary. Set it all up again, tear down yet again. So the final step is that we have our finished command lines here. We have our script ready to go. So the last thing we need to do is we need to get this into Cloud Shell. And there's a couple different ways you can do that. Run it just as a simple script, and let's just see if it works. So I saved the script file. I'm going to go ahead and go back to full screen on our session here, and we got an error message here. What is that? I think I tried to delete that too soon before the instance was gone. Bear with me, slight demo fail. Got a network hanging on a little bit too long. Okay, that's done. Let's try the other one again. Okay, once the network deletes, we will try that again. While we're waiting for that, let's just go ahead and get our script file that we just created into Cloud Shell so we can go ahead and try to execute it and see if our last step works. Now, a couple different ways we can get our script info in here. We could always just create a new text file just by typing in vim script.sh, copy and paste into there. That works fine. I personally like to just upload files into Cloud Shell, which is yet another reason I like Cloud Shell. To do that, we can go to our More menu, upload a file, go to our download. Here's a little script file here. And we just upload it from our local machine into our shell session. If we do an ls command, we have our script.sh file there. Is our network gone? Yes, it is. Okay, so final step. Let's see if everything we do actually works. Hopefully no more demo fails. We'll just type in dot space script.sh. Let it rip, tater chip, and let's see what happens. Now we're only going to see the output of the script or any errors along the way. So we just got to wait for it to first build our networks, create our subnets, create our firewall rules, and then create the instance for each one, and we'll see what happens. I'm just going to look at some of the comments here. Sorry, I was not reading the comments while I was yapping there. Yeah, it's actually crazy easy to build apps and working with containers today these days, Mateus. Good point. Hey, Mateus, isn't there a Google Cloud region in South America, or is it not very nearby? It's actually a really good point there. I just want to. I could be wrong. I thought there was one in Brazil. Yeah, okay, there's one there. Okay, we're seeing some output here. Our script created our networks, created our subnet, network 2 VPC was created. Get like a little warning, say, hey, by the way, you don't have any firewall rules set up, which of course we fix later on. It is now creating our firewall rules for network 1 and network 2. So we're seeing the output from everything here. Looks like it just created our second firewall. I always have trouble with that word, firewall rule. And now it's going to be creating our 2 instances within each network. And we should be just about done. Okay, so it looks like everything complete. No error messages. Good. We'll go back to here and verify everything is as it should be. We have some networks. We got some firewall rules. And we have compute engine instances. Awesome. So our script worked. We just created a gcloud script to create all of this. But again, the main theme here was the process of going from not knowing gcloud commands to using the web console to getting the cross-reference to copy and pasting those cross-references, making modifications necessary. And then once we verified everything works, go ahead and create a script file out of that, do our shebang bin bash, stick it in Cloud Shell, run the script, test it to make sure it works. Everything works. Huzzah. Hopefully we learned something new today. So final step we want to do to make sure this is repeatable within other accounts and organizations, I actually want to run this in a completely different Google Cloud organization. Now, not everyone's going to have completely different organizations they can test with. I just happen to have that due to my job role. And I'm going to go ahead and actually, let me fix my view here. Bear with me a second. I have my Linux Academy Chrome profile here. Should not be showing the bookmark ball. Weird. I'm going to go ahead and log into our Cloud Console within our different organization. And I'm going to upload the same script file that I just created into a completely different organization and account. And let's see if we can actually make that work. Let me first make sure I don't have our resources in here for another demo fail. Okay, good. No, we don't have that network, and we should not have compute engine instances here either. Okay, we're good. Cool. So different organization, different account, different project, different everything. Let's see if this is repeatable across anyone's account. Go to downloads, pop in the script again. Okay, we have our script.sh. We are again going to run this script. Make sure, verify that our end result is good within a different organization. And assuming it is, that will mean we are done. And in that way, we can then use this script. Again, it's a very simple script. You can get much more complex with this. Within any organization, any account, if you want to be able to share this with other people, kind of like what we do in our Google Cloud courses. Again, this one was specifically from our Part 2 course for the Google Cloud Architects track. This is repeatable by anyone to pre-create some infrastructure in advance for another lesson, such as linking to instances via a VPN connection, which is what this particular exercise was for. Looking pretty good so far. No errors so far. We're just going to get our individual outputs here along the way. Creating our firewall rules. And if we wanted to dress the script up a little bit, especially if we are sharing it with others, we could echo out. We could echo out a little command at the end that says "Setup's complete. Proceed with exercise," or whatever flavor text we want to have as well. But we just want to start with a very beginner's introduction to G-Cloud commands. If you don't know G-Cloud commands, you really kind of focus on that. Okay, and we're all done. So we verified that our script works in a completely different account, project, and organization. So this is now repeatable. We can share it with others. If you are a Linux Academy subscriber, you have probably already worked with this exact script within the Architect Part 2 lesson. And we have some other similar scripts for other exercises as well. And it's really a great way to quickly set up some infrastructure so you can actually focus on how to make it kind of interact with each other. That's really kind of the same approach we went with that. So yeah, this really kind of completes the hands-on process. Again, what I really wanted to emphasize was number one, what we did, and also number two, the learning process. So how you can get from here over to, hey, I just created a script in Google Cloud that automatically created networks, firewalls, and instances for me. So yay, IR smart. Awesome stuff. That's really all I had planned today. I really love some of the comments that people were giving here. Also, if you'd like to see a lot more Google Cloud content, and if you are not yet a Linux Academy subscriber, this is basically what we do. Now, this is, of course, a very beginner's lesson we did. But if you do really want to dive really further into Google Cloud, maybe you want to become a certified cloud engineer or an architect, cloud architect, or a data engineer professional. We have courses to take you from, here all the way into getting really hard certifications and just basically really feeling really good about yourself. That's really all that I have to talk about here. If anyone has any questions, go ahead and feel free to pipe in. I'll wait for our stream delay to see if anyone has any other comments. Otherwise, I really love the suggestions here for demos for next week. I'm going to go ahead and go through those. I wasn't able to read all of them right now because I was apparently multitasking, and I'm not so great at that. And we'll figure out what we're going to do next week. I'm going to stay online here just for a moment to see if anyone has any questions or comments before we go off the air here. Oh yeah, so we have our free community edition accounts, and we actually have the Google Cloud Essentials and the Google Cloud Security Essentials courses for free this month. So you can actually sign up for a free community account. It's free, don't pay anything. And we actually have select courses that are available free for the month, usually kind of the beginner level ones, to really kind of introduce you to different cloud platforms, Linux, etc. So yeah, those courses are 100% free. So if you want to get started with Google Cloud and you have no idea where to start, if you're this guy right here, I love that meme, by the way. That just describes me most days, actually. But yeah, I mean, if you have no idea where to start, sign up for a free Linux Academy community account. You can actually go through the Google Cloud Essentials course for completely free right now. And we'll cover things such as G-Cloud commands and a whole lot more. And yeah, you can really dive in and get started with Google Cloud, again, completely for free. So go check it out. Let's see. What exam was harder for me, architect or data engineer? Actually, the architect exam was harder for me. I think really because of the breadth or just the wide range of topics, which is just insanely wide that you have to be familiar with. So it's kind of like 2 miles wide, a couple inches deep. I actually found the data engineer exam comparatively easier because number one, there was some overlap with the architect exam, like you got to know about like cloud storage, bucket storage classes, and IAM role. So a little bit of I was already familiar with that. So I had less I had to study or learn that was new to me compared to the architect exam. Also, the data engineer exam was a little bit more focused on overall fewer topics, even though it was a lot more broad. So yeah, I ironically found the data engineer exam to be just a little bit easier than the architect one, although they're both pretty hard. Are the exams hands-on or multiple choice? They are all multiple choice or multiple answer. So you either choose one answer from a few, or choose like two or three answers from a selection of options. It's not hands-on. On some of the questions, I'm trying to remember if I know the cloud engineer exam, I think may actually have like an image or diagram you're supposed to troubleshoot. I don't think that the architect or data engineer ones do. So it's basically all text. A lot of case studies. You'll have like a little side-by-side split screen view where you have a case study on one side and questions on the other one. More cats. I actually have a cat and a dog here. Do we need cat pictures for memes next week? Cat's not having any idea what they're doing. I think we can set that up. Do you expect associate exams to be a requirement for the pro ones? I think that the associate exam is supposed to be a stepping stone. I think from a difficulty perspective, the cloud engineer one, which is associate level, is easier than the architect one, which I think is by design, kind of like how AWS structures theirs as well. I think from the Google Cloud side, the cloud engineer exam is a lot more tactical. There is a lot greater emphasis on command lines, especially Kubernetes engine, compute engines, like basically different compute platforms, and also just individual settings. The architect exam is really kind of a more big picture strategic. How do we do like big picture designing of different Google Cloud infrastructure for different business cases? It's like a very different theme from one exam over to the other one. Yeah, I think you're right. Architect had case studies, but no diagrams. Also, the architect exam used to be only about 2 case studies per exam. I mean, there's 4 total, but I think people who have recently gone through it has said they have like 3 or 4, like way more case studies in each individual exam as per previous. So definitely be aware of that. Okay, Venkat is asking, I'm a data integration engineer in my current role. If I just do the Google Cloud Essentials course, will I be good enough to get started on the GCP data engineer course and certification? I think so. I mean, if you already have a data engineer background, the Google Cloud Essentials kind of gives you the rundown of how Google Cloud specifically works, kind of the just the basic setup. I'm trying to think if I would recommend. I'm thinking back to the cloud engineer exam. There were some big data questions. You know what? I think in your background, you would be good going straight from essentials to the data engineer course because you're pretty familiar with just kind of the basics of data engineering, and you kind of just go deep into the Google Cloud stuff. So I think that'd be a good run for you. Yeah, they really upped the number of case study questions as compared to maybe a year ago on the architect exam, which kind of surprised me, but kind of makes sense too. Great questions, everyone, by the way. Okay. All right. I think we're out of questions. So I think it's going to be pretty much wrap it up for us here. I hope you found this hopefully a somewhat entertaining and educational, watching me yammer on here for a little bit. I'm going to go over the suggestions in chat here afterwards and pick up a topic for next week. And I'm probably going to post it in the community, the Linux Academy community, what we're covered, just kind of give everyone a heads up. And I may have to learn some stuff myself just to make sure that I have all the details right. And I'm going to go over what I had to do to learn that. So again, learn how to learn sounds kind of cliche, but it's true. So we'll go over the whole learning process of what I had to do to get myself up to speed and kind of go from there. So again, if you enjoyed what you see here, go ahead and mash that subscribe button. YouTube commentator, sorry, had to do that. We have our Google Cloud Weekly, which is a rundown of everything new in Google Cloud on Wednesdays. And we're going to be doing our hands-on demos every Thursday. So something out on Wednesday, something out on Thursday, plus all the other great Linux Academy content as well. Not just Google Cloud, everything else too. So yeah, thank you all very much for joining, and I will see you all next week.